Earlier today, the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, announced that despite the fact that the election went quite smoothly in Florida, was very secure, everything seemed to go okay outside of right-wing rhetoric, they're going to be making a number of changes to election law in Florida. That's the plan. So among the things that he's interested in, he wants more election observers. He wants lawmakers, when they convene in March, to bolster the vote by mail signature verification process and to not shut out Florida political parties and candidates from observing the voter signature matching process. He wants more restrictions on vote by mail, and he hopes that the legislature will address ballot harvesting in the state as to not allow individuals to submit other people's vote by mail ballots unless they are immediate family, despite seemingly any evidence that that led to literally any fraud, even anecdotally. He wants restrictions on organizations that boost voter turnout, because why not? Other proposals would prohibit counties from accepting financial help from private organizations for Get Out the Vote initiatives, require election supervisors to post overvote ballots for the canvassing board to consider, and real-time reporting of voter turnout data. Finally, he had this to say: we need to make sure that our citizens have confidence in the elections, that they have the ability to vote. We want, obviously, everyone to vote, but we don't want anyone to cheat, and we want to make sure that we strike that appropriate balance. And so we're gonna go a little bit broader than Florida in a bit, but he's not gonna let a successful, secure election stop him from making it harder for as many people, Democrats, to vote in the future.
Kenya, have you ever seen in American history before maybe suppressing the votes of a certain group of people to try to get right wingers who are opposed to that group elected? I'm sure this must be a new concept.
I mean, oh my gosh, this has to be breaking. I can't imagine what could have possibly been done in what will be the 245-year history of this country. But as Maya Angelou tells us so often, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. This has to be the umpteenth time, or perhaps the 245th year. But what we see is this is, even in the state of Florida, this is nothing new. Just several years ago, we saw the Republican Party institute a state bill that dialed back Amendment 4, which would, a local or statewide, would have restored the voting rights of returning citizens or those who were formerly incarcerated with felonies. I mean, we see that so long as there is a demographic, a voting bloc that, once you are bestowing them with voting rights, they can potentially benefit Democratic candidates or progressive movements. We see these efforts to dial back. We see these efforts to speak to dog whistles, which DeSantis is doing quite readily, and speaking to wanting to count every vote or count every legal vote, survey the process, or somehow reach a balance of cheating and enfranchising voters. I don't know where you reach a balance of cheating and not cheating, but we've seen this before, and this is all a part of Republican efforts to stifle Democratic momentum and grassroots momentum in progressive movements across the state.
Yeah, and guys, the Republicans have looked into this dozens of times, and they're desperate to find voter fraud, and they just cannot find it. Trump did a commission, and it was headed by Chris Kobach, one of the most right-wing people in the whole country, and they had to shut down the commission because they couldn't find any evidence of voter fraud. And then Kobach did this hilarious thing where he had to go back like 70 years and found like 30 cases or something like that. And then people did the math on it. It was like 0.0000006% was voter fraud. It was comically low. When in reality, when they do these things that make it harder to vote, it disenfranchises millions of voters. So that is not a correct balancing act. So, by the way, just think about it. Do progressives want there to be voter fraud in elections? Hell no. Our opponents would do it first, and almost every time. Republicans would do it first through 100th, and corporate Democrats would do it next. We're the last people on earth that want voter fraud in elections. But number one, good news, it doesn't really exist. Number two is that we're not going to sacrifice the votes of millions of people that are usually, by the way, African Americans, Democrats, students, young people, poor people, people that live in cities and hence don't have driver's licenses, and on it goes. This has always been a lie. And the press has begun to turn a little bit on the issue of climate change. And they used to present it as 50-50 for decades. And now they're beginning to say most of the world's scientists agree that climate change is real. The real number is 99%. They should, on this issue, they should do the same thing. Every person that has ever looked into this, I don't want, like whether it's a professor or let's put it this way, every study that has ever looked at this, including Republican studies, say that voter fraud is nearly non-existent, whereas disenfranchising millions of people is definitely happening.
Yeah, and not just in Florida, as we've been talking about both on the Young Turks and on the damage report. This has become very widespread since the election. So far, at least 28 different states, I think it's actually up to 33, have introduced, pre-filed, or are advancing 106 restrictive bills for the 2021 legislative session, according to a report from the Brennan Center for Justice. So now, this is very heavily weighted towards just a few states. Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan have dozens of bills just for those states. Oddly enough, they were states that the Democrats won. Weird how that works out. But understand that while a lot of this is at the state level, in theory, really restrictive voting legislation could be appealed in the courts, but inevitably it will now hit a conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court that is unlikely to change no matter what Biden wants during the next 4 to 8 years. And the Democrats do have a couple of bills that are pending that would protect voting rights, but they also have literally zero chance of passing unless the Democrats kill the filibuster, which doesn't look like it's going to happen. So their conservatives have now gotten in all of the defense they need in the judiciary, and the Democrats are effectively disarming themselves from fighting back because they don't want to get rid of this tradition, or Joe Manchin's just not into it, or Kristen Sinema something. I don't know, but it's or they're crooks. Yeah, it's a very dark future for voting rights if the Democrats continue to let the Republicans do whatever they want and they don't take it seriously as a priority for them.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to get confused. Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema couldn't care less about Senate tradition, and they protect the filibuster for what? Let me give you 2 quick facts about that because it's so important to every one of these issues. For between 1917 and 1970, the filibuster was used less than once a year. Once Obama became president, it went up to over 80 times a year because the Republicans blocked every single thing that Obama did, and they have already begun to block every single thing that Biden is doing. It is not tradition. And by the way, those 49 times they used it pre-Obama, almost every time it was to block civil rights, including anti-lynching laws. So the great tradition that Joe Manchin is protecting was to protect the right of Southerners to lynch black people. Keep it real. That's a fact. And you can go ahead and look that up.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.